Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our introductory episode of It's Your Right. On this podcast, we'll be discussing victims' rights, issues surrounding victimization, and local resources available to people victimized in our very own community of Stanislaus County.
For now, this is a limited series that we put together for the National Crime Victims' Rights Week, or as some call it, the NCVRW, which is this year, the National Crime Victims' Rights Week. It's going to be April 18th through the 24th. We're pretty excited. We have some great guests lined up, really interesting information, and we'll hope you'll find it helpful.
So a little bit, I'm sure you're wondering, who are these voices that I'm hearing? My name is Brittany, and I'm a victim advocate here at the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office.
Hi, and my name is Courtney. I am also a victim advocate at the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office. Right now, what I do is I work a general caseload, which means I get a little bit of every crime type and with a heavier focus on domestic violence cases.
My role is a little different based on my grant. I am the mass victimization advocate, and I'm sure some of you might be thinking, what on earth is that? Essentially, it means if there were to be, let's say, an incident of a gunman at the mall or a school, and there needs to be a response team that goes to assist with victims and families, and some of those services that we offer, every day in our office, we have a team that would respond, and I'm kind of the point person for that. So that's what I do here, and then we have a team of 13 other advocates besides ourselves, and they all have varying roles based on grant types. This podcast came because of the National Crime Victims' Rights Week. So some fun facts about that. It has been recognized as a national event since 1981, but there's more information about it. Courtney, tell me.
Thanks, Brittany. So, even though it was just a national event since 1981, the very first Victims' Rights Week was organized in 1975 by the District Attorney of Philadelphia at the encouragement of a victim advocate.
Go victim advocates! And that's right. So shortly after that happened, NOVA, or the National Office of Victim Assistance, that was founded by Dr. Marlene Young. She was the first president of the organization, and it really picked up the idea of National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and then, really pushed for President Ronald Reagan to officially recognize NCVRW across the U.S.
And the original goal of the National Crime Victims' Rights Week is just important today as it was back then. The goal is we want to ensure that victims' rights are a visible part of our communities and to help ensure continued funding of victim assistance programs across the country so that people like you and I can continue to offer assistance to people in our community.
It's so important. Thank you for sharing that, Courtney. And something else that I thought was pretty interesting, a founding member of NOVA, John Stein, once said that another goal of the National Crime Victims' Rights Week is really to help blur the distinction, between victims' rights and victim services, because those rights should really be viewed as an extension of victim services, not something that is completely separate from it.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned John Stein, because John Stein and Marlene Young actually released a podcast through the NOVA, and it's a really interesting podcast. I'm listened to it before. You should take a listen to it. If anyone else out there wants to know about this podcast, we're going to link it down in the description below.
Perfect. I was just going to ask you, where can I find it? Because I haven't listened to it, and that sounds interesting. So each year, the National Crime Victims' Rights Week has a theme. And this year's theme is Support Victims, Build Trust, and Engage Communities. So we reached out to a number of local organizations to be a part of this podcast so that they can talk about just exactly how they support victims. Just like in previous events, we've partnered with Stanislaus Family Justice Center to make things happen.
So one thing we're doing for this year's National Crime Victims' Rights Week is we're organizing a virtual 5K alongside NOVA. And so for beginners like me, a 5K is usually a race that is done where people would gather, run a specific route, get a number, or they call it a race bib, so that way they can show where they are in the race and in their position. And so this year we thought we're going to be doing a virtual 5K, which allows people to participate, but separately and safely. And we have created this race bib that you can print out on your own. And with this bib, you can tag us in social media to show what you are doing your virtual 5K for. So instead of a number, it's going to be, I am going to be running for blank. And so just to give you an example of that, for me personally, on my race bib, I am going to be walking for victims' rights. What about you, Brittany?
I will probably likely be walking as well on this 5K. And my race bib, that's a very good question. I don't think I've thought about it enough. But the first thing I think about with that theme, supporting victims, build trust, and engaging communities, I feel like I want to help make our community safer. And I feel like by supporting victims, hopefully that will all fit on my race bib.
That's great. And I think the really great thing about that race bib is you can be running/walking for yourself, for a specific person, for a cause, a purpose, idea. Really the sky is the limit, and we hope that whatever inspires you, you'll tag us on social media so that we can share that with you guys.
What's something that you do, a big thing we talk about is kind of self-care. What do you do to take care of yourself and make sure, we deal with heavy things? What do you do to, keep that boundary and help keep yourself, emotionally healthy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For me personally, it varies day by day on kind of how heavy my day was. But really just having some quiet, unscheduled time is my best self-care, where I just have time by myself. I have a family at home that gets hectic sometimes, a toddler that demands a lot of attention from me. And so when I put him to bed and my husband goes to bed, I like to stay up that extra hour and just do whatever, comes to me that day. So either watching Netflix, listening to some really interesting podcasts, or even like just taking a hot shower. That really helps me unwind and decompress for the day. Yeah, what about you?
I think you said it well. It's that when your battery gets depleted and it needs to be recharged, right? And so I think similarly, it can, be watching, let's say, something on Netflix. So my brain, this is not a plug for Netflix, but, something on a streaming service to be able to kind of just turn your brain off for a little bit. I have a little one at home as well, so trying to be intentional about spending the little time I have, once our day is done. And I suppose trying to be intentional about, laughing with coworkers to just talk about something that's happened, kind of like a little debrief maybe of the day or what just happened, to bring other people in to, kind of, this is what I experienced today. Yeah. And even if it's not in some official way, it's just us kind of talking and bantering about our day. Thank you everyone who's listening. We really hope to see your photos on social media from you joining us on that virtual 5K, which is going to be on April 23rd. It's a Friday. Mark it in your calendars.
Also, don't forget to reach out to us to get your race bib. You can call the Victim Services Unit at 209-525-5541 or find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube under the Stanislaus County District Attorney. We can put the links to everything below in the podcast description.
We hope to see you again on the next episode of It's Your Right.